All right. Hello to everybody who's watching. I'm here with Jack Liu, CEO of Relay, Streamanity, um, among other things. And I've been following Jack for quite a while now. Really interested in his perspective on BSV and how to build businesses and services within it. And yeah, super excited to have him here. And um, one of the things I wanted to get into right away, got a couple of big questions. So there are many competing wallets in BSV, and I like to think of every wallet as like a competing ecosystem, right? At least right now. Each wallet kind of is centered around a specific field or area within or like each wallet has like a vision of the near future at least. And one of my favorite things about Relay is that it's prioritized being open and inclusive and kind of for better or worse, like available to everybody. And I feel like Streamanity is also similar. And so my first question for you is, how's that worked out for you? Do you still believe that's the right way to progress into the future? And my second question related to that is, with that idea in mind, what do you think is the ideal way somebody should use and engage with something like Relay?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's been challenging, whether you built it open or closed so far on BSV, just sheer number of users. But I like to make the analogy that BTC also started with 0 users. And so that's kind of the challenge that you faced anyways. I certainly think that we would have more users right now if more people built open. And I think there's this misconception that if you build open, you can't make money. I'd say that the two companies that have gone all in on chain have been Twetch and Relay, in terms of where the user owns their data, user owns the NFTs. There's been widespread adoption of tokens on both platforms, and obviously in some ways Twetch has been more successful than Relay. In some ways, Relay has allowed creators to create more things of their own. And so with Bitcoin, I think you can make more money if you're built open. But I think that paradigm takes some time for people to understand. Second thing that's a bit of a flaw, which I had to spend time to understand, is that a lot of the things that we want to build on Bitcoin have not been able to be supported infrastructure-wise. Like, would we love to have Streamanity videos on chain? Yes. Would we love to have not a 10 megabyte limit on minting NFTs? For sure.
Yeah.
Those are not things that are part of our business model. It's not like we profit more by restricting that. But that's something that the miners have taken a long, long time to get their act together. And even now, I think the consensus for miners is still 10 megabytes. But to their credit, the fees have definitely come down from, I think it was something like 50 times more expensive to post transactions on chain before. And then in terms of how to best engage with Relay, the product, I think developers would stand really well to engage. And again, because another thing I'll point to that's not exactly ready is layer 1 tokens on BSV. So one of my draws towards building on BSV, which has so far taken a long time to play out, was the idea that if you can build on an infrastructure that has scaling built in, not just for now, but forever, then you can allow a fair playing field where everyone can make tokens, everyone can make NFTs. And I don't mean tokens in the way of just get rich quick type of thing. It's right. Because like when tokens first came on as a phenomenon, then most of the world is not tokenized. So we get attracted by a few things that are, and those things go through a maniac bubble and goes up and down. But at scale, if everyone has access to tokens, just like everyone has access to a computer or writing books or something like that, then the accessibility or the utility of these tokens and NFTs will play out over time. I'm not worried about that. But Relay is built on the Run protocol, which means that for tokens, which means that it's using Bitcoin as like a settlement layer, an OP return, but then you still need this provider, whether ourselves or anyone else, to run the Run database and keep that state up to date. With that, it's hard for developers to build on top of Relay without also running the same infrastructure. And I think that once we get to a point where miners run that infrastructure via L1 tokens, that recently has been come out with this like ZK proof type thing that Xiaohui has came up with, then I think you will actually see most of the wallets pivot towards the open model. Most of the wallets support tokens, and then you'll have this more, I like to think, connected ecosystem.
So you're saying, so there are currently structural difficulties with miners, right? And I'm like on the other side of that, like I'm, closer to a consumer thing, right? So your service is in between me interacting with miners, right? There's an idea that I got from Daniel, which is that adoption kind of moves outwards from a center in like concentric circles, right? So you're like, a couple layers more inward than me. And where I am, I feel like we're sort of stuck. We're not moving rapidly outwards, right? Do you think that's a structural barrier, or how do we get further out like that?
Maybe you can help the audience understand what role you're currently playing. I believe it's a musician or a record label type of thing.
Yes. Okay. So about me, I'm a musician. I grew up in California, Los Angeles, and I moved to New York when I was 18. I lived there for the last 9 years, and I went there for school, but I also worked in different aspects of the music industry, throwing parties, releasing records, DJing, all this stuff. And I really got to see different sides of the music business. Many of, all of it, really kind of informed my view of what, what the, like, there's many flaws in the music industry, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a huge industry, and there's so many different aspects of it. I mean, the most musicians that people know, anybody that's associated with the music industry belongs to a tiny fraction of what the actual industry involves, which is everything from, musicians who only play live 5 nights a week to musicians who only make music for TV commercials and licensing and all that, to DJs and nightclubs. So this giant thing that pervades so many levels of society, and that really informed why I was attracted to Bitcoin, because I realized that the biggest thing for me with Bitcoin is that it presents the opportunity to level asymmetries in the music industry. So like everything today, the music industry suffers from like a bloat of middle management.
That's right.
And there are just so many people that take money out of the products that artists make, which, to some extent that's valid, but for the most part, most artists are not getting a lot of value by engaging with this world. And that's why you now see like a huge shift in like, you know, like, all right, so I produce for a lot of rappers, right?
Right.
And if you're like you know, beat making producer who isn't in a city like New York or Atlanta or Chicago or wherever, you almost have to be like on TikTok and on Twitch streaming, making music,
Yeah.
you know, kind of, you know, performing on social media essentially to get by. And like, that's cool. Some people are really good at it, but if you're not good at it, but you're a great musician, obviously the value is not in the music itself. And again, none of this is inherently bad. It's just created like asymmetry, right? Because, you know, of all things like algorithms and advertisement based models and you know, I was talking to Hensley about how like all content on YouTube, and this is true for every social media platform, it's like all drawn to homogeneity, you know,
Yeah.
like it all has to be as similar as possible to kind of get the most views and all that. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I'm also interested in building games, making
Cool.
games. Yeah, that's
Yeah, so let's get into sort of your original premise, which is
yes.
like this businesses doesn't last very long type of thing. I always say that it doesn't last very long if you stop working on it. But it can last if you keep on delivering value. So what Bitcoin does is it removes the moat. Like pre-podcast, pre-YouTube, you could only get sort of your news from mainstream media and from radio stations, right? So TV and radio and newspapers. For you to be on the air, you have to go through like what I call human walled gardens of interviews, getting a gig at these mainstream companies, and then you would have your audience, right? With YouTube and podcasts, you benefited from the fact that you could become Joe Rogan, or you can be Justin Bieber, and you sang around on YouTube and kind of got noticed. So you kind of was discovered natively on the internet, and you had a platform. But then, even as recently as I think it was a year or two ago, Joe Rogan still made a deal with Spotify for $100 million, which led Spotify stock to go up $1 billion. The future is that like Joe Rogan is the source of the value. Alex Jones is the source of the value. The musician is the source of the value. They will still need partners to help them advertise, promote, organize things. It's not that they will capture all the value, but I think the relationship will be between the creator and the fan directly. And then it's up to the different layers of service providers to convince the creator to part ways with his token or his money in order to buy the services of these middlemen, like that. Instead of the middleman holds the value, like Spotify is a publicly listed company with a balance sheet, and they can rely on the fact that you as a creator do not have access to capital or direct access to fans, and you only have this tight window as a professional athlete or as a musician or as an influencer of like 5-10 years, and you're so worried about making it as a musician or making it as a podcaster that once you've made it, you need to capitalize on it, and the infrastructure is not there to capitalize on it right now. So then you make these deals with basically what I call an insurance company, because they can take bets on a number of artists, a number of athletes. Right. And because of that scale, basically they hold the platform, they hold the value, and they'll give you a piece of it. I think that flips on its head. Therefore, if that is true, I think that there is less money in building a Spotify and there's more money in being a Joe Rogan. That's kind of like where I think of it between the producers and the platform. I can't speak for why you're interested in BSV, but the paradox of this whole situation is at scale, if the world ran on BSV or Bitcoin, then that will be a better world for artists. But it would also create so many more artists. Okay.
Yeah.
That your personal share of the entire world economy will actually shrink, but your because of the sheer number of competition. Now you can also create more as a result of being more efficient. But your take home of what you do create will be massively higher than it is today.
Yeah, so that's a really great point. I feel like, so would you agree then that what that allows, like in that paradigm, you kind of there's more value in being an artist for the people around you, immediately around you,
That's right.
instead of trying
That's
to
right.
sell yourself on the internet to thousands of people or what have you.
Yeah.
You kind of
So the reason why like we are in this like messed up dystopian hive mind of a world where we all follow like Kim Kardashian. I don't, but like some people do, and most people do, and yet
well, it's not
impacted is
just Kim Kardashian, right? I mean, there's so many at
right.
every subgroup, every
Like
niche.
we all watch CNN or we all watch Fox News or we
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
get tied into something, right?
Yeah.
Is because right now the world is such that the decisions of certain people that you don't know can have an impact on your life. So a politician in DC can impact sort of your tax. Some war going on in Russia could impact the cost of your oil and things like this. So then you have two choices. If you choose to live in your local economy, supporting local artists and mind your own business, you have to choose to be relatively financially poor. Now you get this benefit from I live in nature, I have a great family, I'm not part of this corporate system and the government system. Great, I see all that. But there's a trade-off in terms of you're less financially well off than if you were sort of in the middle of that system, working at a bank, at a law firm, at an agency in a big city, going into politics, being a VC, like you see what I'm saying, or running a platform.
Yeah.
But what Bitcoin does at scale is that it will make it more profitable for you to be living that former lifestyle I'm talking about. And because of that, that's because basically everyone can live in their own reality because we have a shared set of infrastructure that we all know we're guaranteed to. Today, that infrastructure is man-made and shaky and depends on G20 meetings and UN meetings and things like this.
Yeah.
So people can't do their own thing. But you're right. In the end, like we're gonna get way more varieties of music. We're gonna get way more hobbies. You're gonna have way more types of sports. Some people like at that point, like it's gonna be hard to even care what other people think about you because like people are not gonna know you, like essentially.
Yeah.
It's like we'll have like millions of different universes within the same universe. Because it wouldn't matter anymore to care about how life is going for some other place. Yeah.
Do you think Bitcoin at scale incentivizes that sort of thing over being monolithic, or that people would find ways to be monolithic anyway?
There's just no money to be the monolithic part anymore. Yeah. Bitcoin adoption leads to that. basically. Because like right now, if you are a bank in Canada, then your bank accepts Canadian dollars. If you're a bank in Australia, you accept Australian dollars or something like that. But in Bitcoin, everything will be running on Bitcoin. So there's no reason at that point to move to New York City or London, because the opportunities are better there. The opportunities will be the same like everywhere. And then it'll actually pay off more the longer you stay in the same place, because you have a deeper way of building a connection, a network effect, a following. If you keep hopping from city to city, you have to start over. So this whole like globalization stuff, I think, has peaked. It's peaked and it's changing. But Bitcoin will lead to like hyper local economies, basically, is what I think will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a tough sell though, because while I see it that way, I do think, if you go to the average person and you tell them one global world money, they see that as like dystopian and actually kind of the complete opposite, right? Centralizing and all that sort of thing. So how do you bridge that gap? Because it's literally two complete opposite worldviews. And I also think one thing that I feel should be discussed more is are there not pitfalls that could make it dystopian, right? Because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is a tool, and the tool itself, while brilliantly designed, can be warped by ideological means. So how could we avoid, well, that's trite, I guess, but like what does it look like where we can get to the the glorious the utopian vision versus the dystopian?
Yeah, the dystopianness only looks that way because it hasn't been adopted. So right now you can definitely do things like reorg the chain. You can do things like censor potentially, because there's only a few miners and the market cap's very low. The more users you get on this chain, the harder it will be to like do those things anymore. So the utopian part only comes when people no longer care about like Bitcoin, because they're caring about all the things they're doing on top of Bitcoin. And the biggest mistake that I guess entrepreneurs right now are making is they want everyone to just like see what they see, right? But they're not. Like, people are busy being a scientist at work. People are busy working as a nurse at a hospital. People are like busy with their lives. They're not actively thinking about the global economic system the way Daniel Kraitwitz has been thinking.
Yeah.
And so even if these people came in and just bought Bitcoin, not much would actually happen, because Bitcoin money is just a way to facilitate the exchange of like goods and services. And without people coming in providing goods and services on top of Bitcoin, people are only going to buy Bitcoin and just hope something magical happens, but nothing's actually happening. And the great thing about Bitcoin is that the price will go down to adjust for the fact that so far nothing much is happening. But the reason why you don't have to have this argument with people about, hey, your current world is unfair, you should come to Bitcoin where it's this perfect thing, is because they shouldn't be coming here for the Bitcoin. They should be coming here for something that they want to buy on Bitcoin that is only possible on Bitcoin. And then when they buy that, what will happen is some of them will choose to sell that. So let's say I want to buy your song NFT. I don't care about Bitcoin at this moment in time. So I just come and buy your song NFT. But then I sell your song NFT, and what did I get after I sold it? I got Bitcoin. At this point, am I going to spend time offboarding myself from Bitcoin? At first, yes, but sometime like later, I'll realize that there's a whole bunch of other things I can buy with Bitcoin, and I just kind of stay with Bitcoin. And at some point, I will notice, just like people in BSV today are noticing, that's like, oh yeah, these NFTs are all going down in price. So then they would prefer to hold Bitcoin. And so this like Bitcoin dominance preference thing happens by putting everyone through this cycle, right? If you start with like this idea of Bitcoin is the most valuable thing ever, it's very hard to get people to all agree on that, because you're agreeing based on a white paper, based on a theoretical like economics. Whereas if you put people through this system, they're actually better off, and they will come to this conclusion themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why Twitch is probably so great, right? Because you have the opportunity to spend Bitcoin for a Twitch, but then if you get, I think, even in like a single like, you have made your money back and can now resume twitching, with a positive balance. I feel like Twitch demonstrates that really well.
Yeah, I do think though that like you will constantly be making less Bitcoins than you did before. It's just a trend. This is just a math. I think people just have a struggle with thinking about. I think I understand how the fiat world works pretty well. I used to work in like Wall Street and study finance before I understood Bitcoin or heard about Bitcoin. And then I think I understand the Bitcoin system pretty well as well. And in Bitcoin, there's like no debt, and there's only 21 million coins, and no asset issued on top of Bitcoin will ever be more liquid than Bitcoin itself.
Right.
So like, yes, like BTC right now is more liquid. That's because it exists outside of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is very small. Government debt, like Japanese bonds, are more liquid than BSV, but that's because they also exist outside of BSV. But of the assets that exist on BSV, Satoshis will always be the most liquid asset. And because they are limited to 21 million, then they will also be the most valuable asset. So they're gonna be the most liquid and then the most valuable. As in, you will always be able to use Satoshis to buy any number of things. Like you can use it to buy Dogs, you can use it to post something on Twitch, you can use it to buy an NFT on Relay. You can use it to speculate on TDXP. I'm not even sure that a stable coin issued on BSV will be used to post on Twitch, right? Like so far, there's like some USDT issued on Token Swap. There's also like Handcash is making it USDC tokenized. I'm not sure that you're going to be able to use that to buy a Govnik, right? Because that is not something that's native to Bitcoin. That's something that's on top. Now, USDs are much more liquid than Bitcoin outside of Bitcoin. But my point is, once you enter the Bitcoin environment, right? If you think about like this world that is chaotic right now that exists, and BSV is like a little dot, right? So comparing anything to this little dot sounds like that's a bigger market. We should get enterprise adoption. This company has $100 billion to put into this little dot. So much bigger than this little dot. There's only 5,000 people using BSV. There's 100 million people using these other things. But if you put a magnifying glass into this little dot and zoom into what is the actual characteristic of this BSV ecosystem, you will notice that Satoshis are the king inside this ecosystem. And because a ledger is more scalable and because a ledger is more efficient than this entire world that exists out of it, you can understand that at scale, this little dot will expand and, like you said, in this concentric circle that Craig was talking about, and eat up the entire world economy and then expand the world economy by a factor of 10x or 100x, because in a way that the current world economy can't take human imagination, human creativity, and turn that into economic output because of lawyer fees, incorporation fees, accounting, all this kind of stuff, and friction.
Yeah.
So then if you look at that, you'll realize that, yeah, sure, hoodies might be a great NFT you can buy, but I don't think you're going to be able to trade on TDXP with hoodies, right? You're not.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to buy music NFT with hoodies. So they are going to be what is called like the consumption items. They're like the things that people produce. They are not the currency inside the system. So then if you accept that BSV is the currency inside the system, you will understand that the consumer behavior is going to change a lot. Like the reason why people today want to drive Lambos and have fancy like designer watches and bags and whatever is because no one wants to be holding dollars. Because anyone who's held dollars the last 50 years, the base money of the world, has gotten destroyed by inflation. If you held these things like a Birkin bag or whatever, it's done well. If you held real estate, it's done well. Even cars have done well. They're an expression of like wealth and whatever. But once you look at the BSV ecosystem or Bitcoin ecosystem, then holding a whole bunch of this stuff is not going to do you better financially. Like if you're the person who holds the most number of NFTs, people laugh at you, right? Because they're like, why would you want to have all these NFTs when you could have Bitcoin instead, right? And so the world becomes much less like materialistic, yet in a contrarian way, there's going to be way more items produced in this world too. And so that's why like Bitcoin represents like human productivity, because you know that no matter who creates something on Bitcoin, like I designed the hoodies, you designed this, whatever, these people are going to eventually want to capture their gains or the productivity in the form of accumulating more Bitcoin. So if you hold Bitcoin already, you're not holding money. See, like the people keep on thinking Bitcoin is money. They think like, oh, if it replaces the US dollar, that'd be great. But I would actually argue that US dollars are a very tiny size of the entire global economy. Like the debt market is much bigger, the stock market is much bigger, the real estate market is much bigger than the circulating supply of the US dollar, because of the fact that the dollar is inflationary, right? So people don't want to have dollars, people want to have dollar denominated debt. They want to take out debt to like build businesses, to like buy homes and get a mortgage and keep on doing that, because they know that there'll be always more dollars being printed to cover up the fact that I have an existing obligation, right? This game has been run to the ground over the last like 200, 300 years, which is surprisingly, the entire world is built on US dollars and this like debt money printed system. And this system worked for a long, long time because of the fact that the US country, which has its US dollar, was so far in ahead of countries like India, China, Southeast Asia, Africa, so that initially, by just bringing people into this system, you were giving people a chance to get out of poverty. And so you had this like idea that US exports inflation, exports dollars. Meanwhile, these people are trading, giving you like productivity gains. But now you have a case that the whole world is relatively moved out of this poverty line. And meanwhile, you've played this game of like 5-year mortgages to 10-year mortgages to 20-year mortgages to 40-year mortgages. You've played this game of blowing up the debt bubble from like a 10% of GDP debt to 50% GDP debt to now 200% GDP debt, where you can no longer print money without causing inflation, right? But then you have to print money because you have this existing debt that you have to service on an individual level, corporate level, national level, and whatever. And so this game like has reached its limit. So this game that has been played, this system that we're in, I have no biases here, right? I've lived in the United States, I lived in Canada, I lived in China, born in China, lived in Japan, lived in Hong Kong, lived in like currently live in Bahamas. Like I have absolutely the most respect for every country's culture, language, and things like that. And quite frankly, if Bitcoin wasn't invented and if this system could keep going, I see nothing wrong with this system. The only reason why I'm keen to build on Bitcoin is because I think it succeeds with or without me now that's invented. And I think that the system that we currently live in, it runs out. Whether I love the government or hate the government, it doesn't really matter. It's just a numbers game. I understand people get caught up in like, I should vote for this guy, vote for that guy, change this policy, change that policy. But if you understand how the system actually works, the math just doesn't work anymore. And so in Bitcoin, it's a fundamentalist approach. It's like the system like works for sure, and it scales, and it's an economic model that works, but it is so different than the world that has been that we currently live in today. Because what we currently live in is like a fake world that is not sustainable at this type of like this kind of monetary system. Do you want me to explain sort of how that Bitcoin would be, or any questions?
Well, I mean, I just want to say that I completely agree with all of that. And I definitely, would love to hear more on the thought that you were going on.
Yeah. Basically, like, if there's only 21 million coins and you have this like black hole that's Bitcoin that gets people to build on Bitcoin, right? Then today we have 5,000 users. I think it's reasonable for someone to earn like 100 BSVs. And you might laugh because it's like, oh, whatever, that's like only $5,000 or something.
No, I mean, that's tremendous.
Right? But you have to look at it like what you're like, your whole coin market cap is $1 billion. But the market cap of the current world economy is something like 100 trillion. If you count all the derivatives, it's several hundred trillions. And BSV is 1 billion in market cap. So you have to look at it like, what percentage of the entire Bitcoin economy am I earning? And so if you earn 100 BSVs divided by 221 million BSVs, then you're making 210,000 of the total by just making art or songs or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And the hoodies was a good example. I think they made like 5,000 BSV, something like that. Right. So
insane.
Right. Insane. Yeah. So that's like one like 40,000 or something like that of the total 4,000. I can't do the math. But the idea is that like 10 years from now, I don't care who's launching hoodies. I don't care if it's Beyonce, like I don't care if it's Jay-Z, I don't care if it's Nike, I don't care how exclusive it is. 20 years from now, you're not making 5,000 BSVs launching hoodies. No. Right. And just like you're not making 10,000 BTC selling pizza now. Right. But you were making 10,000 BTC selling pizza back then.
Right.
But it is not the job of the people who understand BTC or BSV to be screaming at that guy is such a scammer. He is selling pizzas. He's making you give up your 10,000 BTCs. Like, you know that that's worth way more than a pizza. I can't believe you're selling a pizza. That is not the approach we should have. Are there things of dubious value on Relay, on Twitch, on wherever? Sure. Like, by that argument, should I play games on Haste Arcade? Probably not. I should hold on to my BSVs, right?
Yeah.
But this is part of the cycle. It's like you need activity to happen, right? And so in a Bitcoin economy, it massively rewards savers. So I know that people say don't hodl, but the math just says you have to hodl. Because the math says, like, if I was able to make 5,000 BSV selling hoodies, and I know in 20 years, there's no way I will be able to sell 5,000 hoodies worth 5,000 BSVs, then I need to really value the 5,000 BSVs I just got for selling hoodies, because I can't do this again.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas a normal business in fiat world, it's like, oh, I got my first customer. That's just the start of a 20-year company. I'm sure I'm gonna get 1 billion customers later. That is not happening in BSV. You're gonna have less BSVs later for some of the same things. Now, you could improve. Like right now, you can see that there's some actors in BSV that's consistently leveled up and like moved up the food chain and kept coming up with better and better products.
Right.
But one of the reasons why those BSVs or Bitcoins will become worth so much later on is precisely because the network has invited even more talented people, potentially people that are not even born today, that's going to come up in a completely native culture, that's going to have way more. Like I'm 34, like in 10 years I'll be 44, in 20 years I'll be 54. There's no way, even compared to myself, I'll be as creative at 54 as I am at right now, because I already know right now I'm not as creative as I was 20 years ago, right? And so by owning Bitcoins, you're investing in everyone on the network, and the rise of Bitcoin reflects in an increase in products and services delivered by new people coming onto the network. So we're all on the same team, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's why like the businesses are not going to last as long, almost because like people are not interested in building a very long-term business because Bitcoin is the business, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, which is, I mean, it's an immense idea, you know. It's like it frees you from working for money,
Yes.
and it becomes more about working on what you want to do, because
Right.
in general, money as a whole becomes I don't even know if less important is the way to think
Yeah,
about
if
it, but
Bitcoin works, every 10-year-old should be financially retired.
yeah, right, right.
Just because like if you mowed the lawn or something at age 6 or 7 or 8, who knows?
Yeah,
Or 10, I don't know, right? Whatever Bitcoins you earn there should be worth like 100 times you mowing lawns 10 years later.
yes,
Like when kids understand this, right? Like, see, when I went to school, I did not like school. I thought school was a scam. I didn't want to go to school, whatever. But you could see the argument for going to school because you saw that the people who were 40 and 50 in upper management, owning businesses or CEOs, executives, you saw that they were the highest paid people in our society.
mhm,
So then it makes some sense to invest 10 years in schooling, 2 years in MBA, moving up the corporate ladder, blah, blah, because you're like, okay, because I want to reach that peak 40, 50, right? Once people start to see that this game is inverted, you have a currency that's appreciating, so that if you come in and try and earn this currency 20 years later, you will need to have produced more, and you're earning a currency that's way more valuable than like then. So you can't get as much of it then as you can if you do it now. Then the whole thing inverts, and the peak earning years will be much more like an athlete. Like there's no gymnast who says, I'm going to school first and I'm going to graduate university and then we'll become a gymnast,
yeah,
right? Because Simone Biles like winning Olympics medals at 14, 16, whatever, right? Like Michael Phelps is winning gold medals at age 18. This is because they are just good at their specific skill. They just swim or they just do gymnastics. They don't need to be thinking about how do I set up a swimming organization, how do I manage 1,000 people. Those are things that you need, like maturity and ability to manage people's skills. Like that takes time. Just like, you know, you're probably not ready to be a parent at age 10. You're ready to be a parent at age like 25, 30, whatever. But business will increasingly be more of an art or a sport and less of like this human government organizational thing. And once it becomes like that, then the best coders code, the best podcast host podcasts, the best drawers draw, whatever. Like it's not clear to me that the Gopnik's team can ever make as much money in BSVs as they did when they launched the Gopnik's collection.
yeah, right.
Like they can go make Goplandia, they can go make like a new marketplace that's better than RelayX, this is Gopnik branded, but it's not clear any of these things are as much of a sure thing in terms of number of Bitcoins made as they did with Goplanding. And once that's clear to you, then you realize, okay, I need to be first to launch like an NFT collection. I don't actually care whether this Relay platform is like built out or not built out. I don't actually care if the rest of the population wants to buy Gopniks, because as long as the initial group of people in BSV want to buy Gopniks, then like I made my BSVs, right?
So do you think that, I mean, there's so many things to touch on there, but my first thought just from what you just said is like, do you think though that there's a danger of overvaluing things that are half finished? Kind of like overvaluing like something that is exciting and interesting at first, but then doesn't have, you know, because most things need to be built, right? Justin Bieber is much better musician today than he was when he was 14, but he probably made the most money in his teens, right? So
no, he makes more money now. But I'm saying in a Bitcoin world, he could have the entire same career until the number of Bitcoins made. He still makes more when he's 14.
So you end up doing it for the love rather than just, you know, having to slave at it.
Yeah. So like no matter what job you do in this world that I'm talking about, is that like you have to understand like how much is the human potential. Like it's weird, right? It's like LeBron James and these people in the NBA, they make more money than Bill Russell and Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan, even potentially.
Yeah.
Nike certainly has made much more money than Michael Jordan, right? But like, do we actually care about Nike or do we care about Michael Jordan, right? Like this will get reversed, right? So like if you have 21 million coins and that's your like base money, then in terms of number of Bitcoins earned, it will be decreasing. Now, there's something I think maybe I can explain better. You might only make 0.01 Bitcoins in the year 2100, but the purchasing power of that 0.01 Bitcoins will be far greater than potentially all 21 million BSVs combined today.
I believe that completely.
Yeah. Right? So like you have all Bitcoins right now. They're worth $1 billion. Can you even buy a sports team? Can you buy like a huge building? You can't. Like I think that like a skyscraper is worth more than $1 billion. Or like a stadium's worth more than $1 billion right now.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, if you look at the number of Bitcoins earned in the future, it's going to be lower. But because the human productivity is growing so much and this system is absorbing so much, we're not saying that people who come later are being more poor. They're going to be more wealthy in terms of purchasing power than today, but the number of coins they earned will be much less.
Going back to the Twitch example, the thing is that like, yeah, they sold 5,000 BSVs worth. At some point though, they have to spend some of that BSV to enable the or to bring about the future where that amount of BSV is, you know, worth what it is. They need to reinvest some of that BSV back into it. So how do you kind of, in your view, as somebody with a lot of experience in this, how do you kind of ride that, you know, that curve?
Yeah. So I think someone like myself will be completely disrupted if I haven't already been disrupted out of the product building game in Bitcoin. Number one, I can't code, right? So it's early enough where I have some ideas of what can be coded, talk with my teammates, we code something, right? At scale, this reinvestment question you asked is very, very pertinent. I believe that if anyone needs to spend money in order to do something on BSV, that means that's a skill that you are not competitive at. Right? So for the Jamify founder to build Jamify, I don't believe he needs to spend a single dollar because he has the skills to build Gemify. Now, he does have to rely on a lot of the stuff that Relay built for him, and we chose to build it open and whatever, so he did it like that. But as this iteration goes, what will happen is that, like, just like when you make a video on YouTube, you don't need to build YouTube, right? You can just do the podcast yourself, like without any capital spend.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you need to hire someone and pay them fiat money or even Bitcoins, and then hope that your product can earn more Bitcoins, this math doesn't make sense. Because, like, there's only 21 million coins, right? So if you spend 100 coins to build something, the likelihood that you can make more than 100 coins back is like 0. Like, at scale is 0.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because anyone can build something, but there's only 21 million coins, and you upfront already spent this money, right? The reason why today banks will give you a loan to go do some project, open a restaurant, start a business, whatever, VCs will invest in you, is because they think it's because they're very good at, like, picking great projects that can return dollars. And, oh, look at this, I invested $1 million, it became $1 billion. Yeah, sure, that did happen. But 2 reasons that happened is because without the decentralizing technology of Bitcoin, a good idea will be able to build a moat like a Spotify, like a Facebook, that attracts all these people under this one roof. So that is value capture, right? And then there's like this inflation going on, money printing, that favors assets over labor. So centralization plus inflation leads to, whoop, I'm so smart, I invested this thing, 1 million became $1 billion. In Bitcoin, it's very hard to imagine you invest 100 BSVs and it becomes 10,000 BSVs. That's possible maybe today, but at scale, it's not possible. So what that means is you will only do things to try and earn Bitcoins that does not cost you any amount of financial capital. Because if it costs you financial capital, it means you're not good at that. Right? Like,
do you think that's like an inherent law in general, or is that something that's particular?
That's going to be a law in Bitcoin, because
Yeah.
in essence, you spending money to get something done equals the money is the middleman. From someone who doesn't need to spend money. Like, see, right now, everyone needs to spend money because I need to hire you, I need to hire some people, I need to open an office, everyone needs to spend money. But in Bitcoin, because you can make money directly, you don't need that. Like the people who built Haze Arcade, right? Like, yes, to scale Haze Arcade, I'm the first investor. They took on more investors, whatever. But the insight people should look at is that they were able to make that tap initial game with just an idea of that game.
Yeah.
Right? At scale, when all these APIs are out, all these wallets are open, there's all these users, there will be someone who can, like, make a lot of money, right? So people are looking at the wrong way. It's like, they're like, oh, TikTok is like Web 2, or like Instagram is Web 2. I want to build like La Mint or one of these things, like creator platforms, and replace Spotify when we build Gemify. Yeah, sure. This is like phase 1. This is like the rudimentary phase. Because you want to empower creators to monetize and whatever. But at some point, it's like the creator who are making these TikToks and whatever, they're the ones that make money immediately. Because, like, they just make money from the very active production. So at that point, like, if you can't actually do a TikTok yourself and you need to like invest in someone else to do a TikTok to try to make your money back, this doesn't make any sense. Right? And so what is this idea of like everyone working on things that they love and whatever, is just like, you will be able to monetize, you will only be able to monetize things that you are good at and you spend time getting good at. You are not going to be able to monetize off the back of someone else doing something and you paying them to do something, because they don't actually need you to de-risk them. The reason why, like, they need your money to start building something is because they have no way of communicating with their audience what is that they're about to build. if they could, just like you do see right now, you can pre-sell an NFT, you can pre-sell whatever. Like there's a world where like the stadium or the restaurant, like the venue, is something that you can buy as an NFT. There's a world where you can pre-sell like tickets to an event that hasn't yet started as an NFT. So like all these coordination problems that you need capital as a way to bridge you into, you no longer need. Do you see what I mean?
I do, of course, yeah, I do. I'm just taking it all in because there's so many kind of, there's so much distance between where we are now and where that is, that I'm trying
Well,
to.
there isn't that much distance, right? Like in all the products that Relay builds, you can see hints of where we're going, right? In terms of what we've allowed the creator to do, mint a token, sell an NFT right off the bat. You see hints of that in terms of how we're built in an open way that anyone else can build on top of. It just seems very far because right now, no one else is building along this way. People are still very, very much attracted to this other world that's surrounding this dot, right?
Yeah, well, because it's like
people,
even within the dot of the Bitcoin economy, most people are still thinking in terms of dollars and how to profit in dollars, right? So I mean, yeah, it's a tough thing to get past. I mean, I also like my focus right now, you know, I'm releasing music from all these artists, and my current focus, even with all this in mind, is like, all right, I need to generate some dollars so that I can pay these artists and kind of create at least the structure of the business that I'm working on will run best if I can return a profit in dollars as soon as possible.
Yeah. So I'm saying if you want to make money in dollars, fine. Then you should build a dollar business. You shouldn't be building a Bitcoin business. It's very hard for you to use a $1 billion asset to try and return a realistic amount of money in a $100 trillion economy.
Right, right.
Right. Like if you're born in Zimbabwe, what's your best chance to make dollars? It's to go to New York City and work there. That's how you make dollars. You don't make dollars in Zimbabwe, right? So if you're in BSV, you shouldn't be in BSV to make dollars because you're not going to make dollars, right? And if you do make dollars, it's because the BSV economy itself grew. Like it's not because some like the dollar economy, like you can't, the two things are not like connected basically. So
so that in that sense, so you have to really focus then on a business model that prioritizes the Bitcoin, the usage of Bitcoin, the retention of Bitcoin, without needing to constantly exchange the Bitcoin into dollars, which, as you say, and I totally agree, is a losing game, you know.
That's right. And so this is where tokens come in. So like I've said it very clearly, I think the long-term value of most NFTs and most fungible tokens will trend towards zero. But then again, the pizza has lots of value. It's very delicious. It also trends towards zero. Like how much is the pizza now in BTC? Like 0.00001 or something.
Right.
But by selling people something like a token, you can sell them something more than what a particular song is right now. So like Mandeep's like deep token represents something bigger, right? And there's a world where people will, at first, they will look at opportunities in BSV. The people who are not in BSV, they're going to compare versus dollars. So it's like, if I invest in the S&P 500, I make 20%. If I invest in this, maybe I make 60%. Now, what they don't realize is that BSV is going up 200%. So the 60% investment is actually 3 times worse than investing in BSV. But if the 60% investment doesn't exist, BSV actually goes down every year. Right? This is a paradox. It's like, if you don't sell the pizza for BTC and no one sells anything for BTC, then BTC never went where it is today.
Yeah. Right.
And so you have to like create this mechanism where it's good for you to sell something, and it's good for the buyer who's thinking in fiat terms or traditional terms, and it's underperforming BSV, and that's okay.
Well, that's why I really like that idea. It's not an idea, it's true that BSV in Bitcoin represents productivity. Like I feel like that's the best way to put it, because because productivity is in and out, right?
Right.
It's not just I'm putting on a show, but that I'm paying, the printer to make the posters for the show. I'm paying the venue for the show. It's like so many uh so many sides to that.
And this is where Kravitz says something very good, which is like you're supposed to be building for other Bitcoiners, right? So like, is your song what other Bitcoiners want? Not
That's
sure.
that's a great question. That is a fantastic question. I mean, I think it's a tough question because like I'm not, to be honest, I'm not going to make a song that is about Bitcoin. Like I'm not going to make like a Bitcoin meme song or something.
Right, but the fact is, those are the only songs that sell as NFTs,
Yes. Yeah, I
right?
mean,
Like Mandeep's like
yes.
song about Schwa, song about like a Bitcoin, whatever. Those are ones that people. It's like
Totally.
again, it's like if you want to sell to the Zimbabwe economy, you got to go understand the Zimbabwe culture. You can't sell a mainstream US song to the Zimbabwe economy. Like you think about
Right.
BSV Zimbabwe right now. And so this is why like this entire
But that is also the element that I'm bringing, which is like my vision for it is somewhat more future oriented to where there won't be only Bitcoin meme songs, on BSV. There will be the rest of the world of music.
right. But the problem is you right now are a visionary. You are a visionary in understanding what music will be one day on BSV. But if you do a business where that business only makes sense when that day comes,
Yeah.
you have to realize that when that day does come, there's 100,000 more views. And then you never actually captured this insight.
Yes. So
So you
there's
have to be building what Bitcoiners want today. You having a vision of what Bitcoiners in the future will want, that's great. As a thought leader, is great. You might be able to, monetize your vision, but your product cannot be monetized because by the time that day comes, there will be 100,000 better products than that. You see?
Yes, I do. I do. This is something that I'm grappling with.
Yeah. It's fascinating, right?
It is fascinating. I mean, it's exciting and it's like, I mean, it's like a problem that must be solved.
Right.
And it requires creative solutions because at the end of the day, it's highly unlikely that even at my most desperate, I would make a Bitcoin meme song. But there must be there is a solution, and it's going to be a novel one for sure.
In Bitcoin, there's like three things that you could build, right? I know there's all this chatter out there about like, utility and whatever, but the reality is that like you're in the bootstrap phase of this ecosystem, right? People want three things. They either want something that they desire at a human level that they're deprived of. So like the OnlyFans market is targeting people who are deprived of connection with the opposite gender or attention or whatever.
Yeah.
You can build something like that where like there's this like deprivation.
Yeah.
Talking strictly as a business person here. Or you build something that feeds into people's desire to make money. So like that could be like a gambling platform. Now, the morality of that is obviously questionable, right? But the reason why Pure Game gets lots of plays is because people want this chance of 10xing their money or 5xing their money. And in many ways, crypto, NFTs, and tokens are a better form of gambling than gambling itself, because lotteries and gambling is like the house takes 2 or 3%. In the form of lotteries, they take even more. So
Hmm.
you have like a 30 to 45% chance of winning. But crypto and NFTs, if you can grow the community and grow the ecosystem or whatever, you can for a period of time look like everyone's winning. You see what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
it's not like draw the lottery and then you lost, I win. It's not like that. It's like there's a period of time where you could argue that everyone who bought Dogecoin in 2013 is winning. Everyone who bought Dogecoin in 2016 is winning. Like
Yeah.
there might be one day where it goes to zero, sure, but like for a long period of time, it looks like everyone could be potentially winning, right?
Right.
And so that is more compelling than gambling, even though you could say it's also gambling, okay? But this
Hmm.
it's a secondary market of like making money. So it's like either I have a human need, like it could be sick, it could be whatever, but like I need it. That is a potential business. I don't advocate for building something like that. I'm saying that's what it is, right? I personally wouldn't build OnlyFans, but there's a reason why OnlyFans is popular.
Sure.
And the second one is like making money.
All right.
Yeah, and then so those are the first two. And then the third thing that I would focus on, by the way, this is so much better lighting wise. We should just start the podcast over. There's no glare.
Oh yeah, let's keep it going, man. I'm free all day.
I can talk a long time, but trust your editing skills. The third thing that is what people in BSV really want, and this is the thing that will materialize at the end, I believe, is this idea of utility. So something like Apple Pay has utility, and Amazon Kindle has a utility. You know, if Money Button is adopted across all websites, that has utility.
Hmm.
These are things that require a tremendous amount of scale to make money, because you might need 100 million users, each paying you 1 cent or whatever it is to make a profit. So you need a lot of engineers. You need like a lot of things. And today, Bitcoin doesn't have that many number of engineers. It does not have that many users. And so, you know, you might have a great idea for BTC back in 2011, but you might not perform as well as the person who has an idea of selling a pizza.
Right.
Because he got 10,000 BTCs right away. I don't know how long it takes you to get your product launch, might be 4 years. By the time you launch your product, yeah, is it objectively better than selling a pizza? Yeah, for sure. But it's like, at that point, how many Bitcoins are you going to earn? Like 5. So, so of the 3 businesses, I think today, the people in Bitcoin's job is to build one of the first 2 businesses or be a creator on one of the first 2. And the empirical evidence is proving that out. TDXP makes money, which is now called DX as a trading platform. Pure Game as a gambling platform makes money. Twitch, Rare Candy, Twitch, the actual posting of Twitch doesn't actually make money, right? But like the NFT part of Twitch makes money. So does Rare Candy. Relay, as much as the UI is terrible, mostly because it reflects like I'm not a great entrepreneur, but it makes a decent amount of revenues for it, right? And Flow SV used to be a trading platform, made revenues. And I think there's a multiple more of these businesses out there than people imagine. But I think people are hamstrung into not fully embracing Bitcoin for what it is. Like people think like, okay, if I go build those businesses, that means that we are never going to see Bitcoin used for good, what they call good.
Yeah, sure. I
That's
see
not
that
true,
perspective. Yeah.
right? Like Silk Road being used for whatever it's used for. I'm not advocating for that. Does not mean people today can't be using, like, if BTC has scaled, right? It doesn't mean people can't be using that as like a remittance tool or something like normal, right? We need to understand that we're part of the economy. Like the early uses of the internet being like shady, porn and gambling does not prevent today's internet from being used in useful ways, right?
Right.
And the reality is that we just don't have the number of skills and engineers to build those kind of purely like productive type of apps. And we know that because the founder of Money Button, like literally first sold Money Button, second just quit BSV.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just speaking strictly from empirical evidence, right? And then the projects of like, you know, you went after the EHR data business opportunity. Unfortunately, the founder passed away, and the healthcare data is still not on BSV, right? You go after Tuvalu, okay, I'm sorry, but the CBDC is not on BSV, right? It's two years later.
Yeah.
So we're just in this phase where if you have to see a long vision and just build what you can and create what you can and trust that the future will solve itself out. So I'd rather be in the business of building like companies that have potential to profit. And I think like that's how Bitcoiners should think. Like your job is to help Bitcoiners make money or provide something that they want. Your job is not to think about like what could Bitcoin potentially do in some far off future and think like that.
So what, all right, so I mean, this is going to sound like a real normie question, but I really want to dig deep on that. Because like, what exactly prevents the kind of like short-term, like ICO kind of mindset then, you know? Like, or is it if,
No, but you want that mindset.
so if everybody had that mindset, you believe
Yeah.
that that makes the whole system anti-fragile in a way, right?
That's right. So everyone can make an NFT now in Relay. And very quickly, the BSV ecosystem has learned that I don't want to buy all these NFTs.
Right. Yeah.
Which is good, because now we're looking for NFTs with utility or something.
Yeah.
Or NFTs that actually need. So
Well,
maybe
yeah.
tomorrow you'll see someone launch like an NFT that represents like meat or potatoes or whatever the things that you actually need, right? Like something like that, instead of just pictures. Yeah. So like the difficulty level goes up by destroying a market, and like that's good. So people keep on thinking like if everyone launched ICOs, it means like this whole thing becomes ICOs. It doesn't. If everyone launched ICOs, maybe 5 of them will work, and the rest would no longer work, and it would force everyone to create more value and move on to the next phase. So I'm okay even if BSV became like pure game chain and everyone just came to BSV to gamble, right? Because if you can get 5 million people to come and gamble, those are 5 million people who have been onboarded to BSV, right? And you just have to keep on thinking in complete abundance, right? Like if you think one day that there will be 5 billion users of Bitcoin, then the average user is going to have something like 250,000 Satoshis. Okay, that's today's price is like 0.00001 BSV, right? Or 225 BSV. But if you gambled on pure game and you lost like 75% of your money, but the allure of this gambling got you to set up a hand cash wallet, whatever it is, then obviously right now you don't get a thrill of gambling $50, you gamble $500. So you gamble 10 BSVs, you lost 9. Or in the worst case, you lost it all. Like most likely you're still going to be ahead of the rest of the population in terms of keeping a little bit of BSV, like 0.5 BSV,
right,
or whatever it is. So when this all plays out, you'll be like, oh, I'm the idiot who like lost 9 BSVs. Like at the end of the day, the person who did spend 10,000 BTCs for pizza, what people don't understand is that person actually has 200,000 BTCs. He was an early GPU miner. And so he had plenty of other BTCs. Sorry, BTCs, I mean, you know? So onboarding people into, you see, like people in fiat, the people who behave good in fiat, like they save properly, they don't overly consume, they don't like go gamble, they don't buy drugs, they don't do whatever. The well-behaving citizens of fiat ultimately still live a terrible life because they're getting screwed by the system, right? But if you come to Bitcoin and you participate in a few like unsavory things, whatever that does remain, the system is the most beautiful system ever, right? And what you need to do is think about, obviously it's great. If you can think of something like very productive to onboard people, that's even better. But in the medium and short term, it's just best to onboard people however you know best to onboard people. You have to like come to that understanding, because
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people in BSV are like good natured people. I hope I'm one of them as well. We see the potential of what a beautiful world this could be, but then we are not willing to play as dirty as the people who just see this as a money-making opportunity. So the people in the rest of crypto are just like, whatever, launch a scam, launch that scam, launch that scam, launch a scam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet you can keep on calling them scams, but even if those scams went to zero, those people aren't coming over to BSV. It's not like their bear market happened and BSV went up. It didn't. It also crashed, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, no matter how much good you do in the fiat world, the system is constantly decaying. Like you can go help the poor, you can go like donate money to charity, you can do whatever. Like ultimately, the fiat system, mathematically speaking, will always lead to more income inequality.
Right. Yeah.
The Bitcoin system, no matter how much bad it is going on there, the system naturally cleans out the bad actors without putting them to jail. Not by doing that. It's just people smarten up. People are like, oh, I don't want to buy more random NFTs. I want to do other things. Like,
Yeah.
so the system just becomes beautiful over time, right? That's how I think about it.
And okay,
So
so
you as an entrepreneur need to think like, what do people in Bitcoin need? And what is this like super attractive thing that's going to attract someone over? You can't think at scale. You can't be like, oh, you know, one song on Spotify is only like 5 cents. And like one song on RelayX is like $1. That's like so much more like than what you're getting on Spotify. But it's like, well, I can only sell 4 songs. I don't really care about $4.
right.
Right? Like I don't want that. So you have to attract people with this idea that they can make $500, $1,000, and relatively speaking, they need to have full ownership. Like they need to have like some kind of thing that they like can do that like they can't do from a realistic perspective, and attract them in that way.
Okay, I have two questions from that. One, I guess, is a total side tangent. But yeah, getting into this, so what you just said, the idea of what you can do in BSV that you can't do in the outside world, like literally cannot, structurally cannot. Can you get into a little bit on like ideas that you think are specifically only possible on BSV?
Yeah, I think you can make like a Facebook, but it's more like token book, where there is a world where every single person that has a Bitcoin wallet can have a token. Okay. Like right now on Twitch, what you see is every single person has a profile page. They're allowed to post and they get this like, and they make like 4 cents or something like that. But you can reimagine like a social network where everyone can launch a token. And so you're not, see, right now as a person liking, I don't make any money. Like I literally gave away 5 cents to someone, right, for liking their post. But if literally everyone by default essentially had an ICO, then yeah, 99% of them will go to zero or go do very poorly. But now you have this idea that you're investing in like a person. So I should be able to look at this podcast and literally buy your coin right now on BSV. So if you think about what really happened, is first there was BTC, then there was like a handful of coins, and then there became like a bit more coins. And you can look at them as scams, but you can also look at like previously small business had no access to liquidity. They need to go public on the IPO market. But that required being in a privileged nation. Like you can't, there's no public markets of any decent size in the rest of the world. The big ones are America, Hong Kong, Singapore, London. Now you have the equal opportunity market. But first, the first phase of crypto was you still have to get listed on Binance, right? Or listed on a major exchange or Coinbase. You have to pay a listing fee, have to be connected, whatever. That's is still like a walled garden. Then Uniswap allowed you to trade anything on Ethereum. But the scalability issues of Ethereum meant that there was only like realistically I think there's only 400, if I'm not mistaken, I may be completely wrong, maybe it's 4,000, but I think it's like 400 pairs on Uniswap.
Okay.
Right? But with Bitcoin scalability, there's no reason why you can't have 7 billion tokens, like one for each person, or maybe multiple for each person. Um, and then there's like some value there, right? It's like, yes, your token is not performing better than BSV, but when you hit me up to do a podcast, I could look at what your token is trading at. And it's not embarrassing if your token is only trading at $475 market cap or like 8,000 market cap. It's something, right? And I know that like your token is more valuable than someone else's token. I have some way of measuring things. It's like just because a tomato at the grocery store isn't go bad, and if you don't sell it, it becomes zero because literally it'll rot. Doesn't mean there's not a value for that thing right now, right? So I think like everything that can have a price will have a price, and they'll all be traded. So my insight, and that's like at the token level, that's like the speculative stock level, right? And I think that's like a transition phase. I think that will be big for a short period of time. In the long term, I think every single service and good will be an NFT, right? So every entity will be like a token, like a fungible token, and then every good or service, the specific good or service will be an NFT.
Yeah, so the first idea I really had with GEIST, the label that we're running, and we're deep enough into the conversation that I think we can talk about it. I had this idea that every we basically circulate an internal token between all the artists, because one of the problems I see with like an artist releasing music today, especially as an independent artist, is you're kind of forced to put out music on many different labels, because it's like every label has like a niche or whatever that they cover. So like, for example, like I put out 2 vinyls on my friend's label, and I'm probably going to do more, but I'm also going to be reaching to these labels and all that. So my idea was that to keep kind of a close-knit family, every release would be tied to an amount of internal tokens. And we would, so every time I sign a new release, we deflate the amount of tokens. So every artist that comes on gets a less amount of tokens, such that every release selling, if we make the same amount of copies of every release, the tokens increase in value the more copies of each release we sell, you know? So it's like each individual artist has a incentive to stay within the group, and kind of the tokens represent their share in the label, and each release builds on each other, right?
Right. Okay, so I had a pretty predominant role in like some of the token designs of things that you see in the ecosystem. So I'll, without going into it too much, but like use Haste as an example, right? They give something like 30-40%, whatever it is, maybe 50% of the tokens in a fixed daily reward, something like 43,000 HSTs every day to gamers. Yeah. And so you can imagine that by gaming with Haste, you get to own some loyalty points of this Haste platform.
Right.
And they also give like 10-20%, whatever it might be, to people who build games on Haste. So there's like this two-sided network effects, right? And it does a lot of things, because now gamers are going to promote this platform because they have a stake in this like HST or whatever. So I'm not saying that making a music label is the right business to build at this point in time. Let's leave that aside. But if you want to build it with a token, the way I would think about it is you want to brand it as the first musician-owned record label, right?
Okay.
So by joining my record label, you get to own the record label. And what you do is you give a fixed amount of tokens every single day to whoever joins the record label, okay? Hypothetically speaking. But initially, there'll be less people joining, so they're going to get more tokens. And later on, when you blow up and there's lots of people joining, there'll be less tokens per person. This is the same idea with like Bitcoin, right? It's like 50 Bitcoins every block initially, right? Less people, more Bitcoins each. later on, less Bitcoins each. And then you would take your profits and buy back. Now, the reason I don't like this idea very much is because I don't think your model is not here to scale to 1 million or 10 million artists, is it?
No, it's here to scale to like 100 artists at max in 10
That's
years.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So that is like an exclusivity platform, which is not really suitable for an inclusivity network called Bitcoin. Like if you think about like what all the products that I've made and whatever, they've always been like open in the sense that like, yes, the product UI sucks right now. Maybe it'll always suck. But the idea is like if it were to work, an unlimited amount of people can come use it. Like it can support an unlimited number of artists, an unlimited number of NFTs, unlimited number of AMM.
But I mean, do you consider Relay to be really serving consumer products though? Isn't it more of a service or an interface? We're trying to sell consumer products, like specifically packaged products, you know?
Yeah, but I think the businesses that will win for now are the platforms, like the infrastructure platforms that will be able to sell more. Because again, the economy is so small. There's like only 10,000 people in this economy, or 5,000 people in this economy. Like it's very like if this is what you want to do, nothing stops you. This is a free world from building it. I'm just saying it's very hard to be profitable doing this. Like Twitch first got 70,000 users onto their platform, then they could sell hoodies. If you went straight to selling like hoodies, it's a bit harder.
Yeah.
I think like basically like you need to try and use Bitcoin in a much deeper way than you currently are using it.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if it's like think about what you're doing right now to get an artist. You probably have a phone call with them. You probably like talk to them. You probably do these things. So basically 99% of your business is not Bitcoin. 1% of it is Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, I'm utilizing my social network outside of Bitcoin to put music that we we have a certain standard of taste. Maybe that's not relevant to the moment, but like we're trying to put out music of a certain flavor, right? And yeah, so I'm utilizing my social network, which is far outside Bitcoin.
Right. So then you should build your record label outside of Bitcoin too.
Well, we are. I mean, don't get me wrong, we are. I'm not,
Yeah.
it's not an all eggs in one basket type thing. It's more like because I see the future with Bitcoin, I'm trying to, lay little stones to build something out of it as time goes on and sort of ride that curve. Along with other things, because we're also building games and other stuff, but specifically with the music, the idea is to get in early and generate what we can for that long-term perspective when we switch from or there's a bigger audience for like what we're selling, right? But at the same time,
what I'm saying, when there is going to be a bigger audience, there's going to be a lot more competitors to you as well.
Yeah, well, that I don't, but I mean, I agree completely. And there's like an element of truth to that, but that's also the world I already know of music. And I already think we stand out in the wider world of music to begin with. I don't think, I think competition is not, particularly.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's a world where you can make money on this music idea, but you keep on trying to make the existing way you do music and like bring this to BSV.
Well, because there's an irony though, because, well, you're exactly right. And there's an irony, like if we tried to release a Bitcoin meme song to the wider community that I know, that would significantly decrease our social credit with them. But
I think I have a different example for you. Like you see there's like something called Morning Run, right?
Yeah.
That Joshua Hensley made that ranks like tokens, kind of like a coin market cap. I'm saying like the best music business I can think of right now to build is something like Music Run.
Hmm.
Just make a list ranking the tokens of the musicians. So even if today there's only Deep, that's okay, fine.
Hmm.
I'm sure if you made a platform like that, in a nice UI that allow people to like scroll through different musicians and whatever and buy their tokens, even if their music remains on Spotify, remains on YouTube, remains doing concerts the old way, you can get people to mint tokens. And then after that, sure, I can still go to Morning Run and see these tokens. I can still go to RelayX and see these tokens. But if I'm into music, I'm going to go to your thing. So then you became like the musician social network, but with tokens.
Hmm.
Okay. And then these musicians can post like updates, kind of like a Twitch feed, kind of like that. Like it's like something like this that you then can take 2 or 3% of every single musician's tokens, potentially as a fee, whether you accrue upfront or you make it over time. Then you basically can then market that like, oh, the current market cap of all musicians on Bitcoin is like $3 million.
Yeah, it sounds
And
like MySpace. It's like a new MySpace, right?
right.
Yeah.
And within that, you can later on add like NFTs and whatnot. But like if you are thinking about this thing in micropayments, it's like weird. I think like basically Handcash has done an incredibly like weird job of like making micropayments the be all end all of Bitcoin
Hmm.
when it's not, or it's like just some feature of Bitcoin, right?
Okay.
Like if you imagine the US economy and what made it great, it's not because you can have like fast payments of US dollars. What made it great was because you can set up a business in the United States. You can incorporate a corporation. You have this rule of law. And yeah, do you need credit cards to pay for iPhones? You need to buy things? Sure. But without this like enterprise called Apple or called Tesla, TSLA, you would never get Tesla cars in the first place, right? And what the micropayment model does is allow you to pay for things like really fast and whatever, spend your Bitcoins.
Hmm.
But it doesn't allow someone to build their entity on Bitcoin, okay? So if you keep on telling musicians, hey, don't sell here, and then you can make like 3 cents here, 6 cents there, 9 cents, this is not interesting. What
Hmm.
I'm thinking is interesting is when the musician says, sorry, I'm becoming an entity myself. Then once I mint a token, I'm worth $34,000. I'm worth $85,000. I'm worth $24,000. That business will always be more attractive to a musician than the business where they can only like sell their song, right?
Right. So you're saying that, well, I mean, but that,
Like Coin Market Cap makes a lot of money, right? Coin Market Cap was acquired by Binance for $400 million in 2019.
okay.
You don't go to Coin Market Cap to like use any of those coins,
Oh, yeah, of course.
right? But that's a viable business. But it's like you're trying to get people to like use like BSV to stream something on chain, the audio, like you're waiting for lots of things to be built. Whereas I, as a person, if you have all these connections to the music industry, as soon as they launch a creator token, the math is that like if this person is committed to like giving like 50% of all his lifetime revenues to buy back this token or whatever, this token has to be worth like at least $100,000, right? Like Haste is a great business. Their token right now, market cap is $2 million.
Hmm.
Like, there just has to be worth $2 million. It doesn't matter how small BSV is, they're just worth that much. Once it's worth that much, you have a lot of musicians doing this, then obviously there's lots of money. Like each musician can give away 5% of their creator tokens to someone else to make them a platform to play these streaming music and stuff like that, right? It's like you first have a market like called futures to trade oil before you have like an invention of like the automobile. Like you don't need to invent automobile. People will already trade have a prediction market of what do we think oil is going to be worth in the future before you have the car. But if you have like the car first without a market for oil, that's like backwards. And you're going to constantly find
Yes,
like
I see. I mean, I see what you're saying. You know, there is something there that could be built. I'm not going to say I'm not the person to build it, because I would like to build as much as I can.
you don't have to be the person building it. I'm just saying like there's a lack of money in BSV.
Yeah.
And so there's a lack of users in BSV.
Right. So I mean, so we have to first, you know, consider that hurdle before, you know, we can think about all the extra shit that I'm, you know, kind of focused on, which is extraneous. I mean, like I fully admit that like what I'm trying to do with BSV is extraneous to the current BSV economy, which we've already discussed, you know.
Right, and people like this, like I say this because like if you, a lot of people come in with some idea of what they want to build, and then 6 months later they check out. It's like Ryan is one of the best developers in BSV, comes with the idea of like stamp mail or whatever, heart mail. But then like before he launched it, he left. So like what is the point of discussing whether that's a good idea or bad when the person advocating for it being a good idea never even stuck around? So like I feel like I'm having this debate with you about what to build when no matter what you say, it's not even clear to me that you're going to actually build what you're saying. So it's like I'm debating with a nothing, with like something that you see what I'm saying? So ultimately,
well, it's not a debate. I'm learning from you, you know.
it can't be a debate. I'm just saying like it will exist. It will exist. But it doesn't exist at scale until a lot of other things have been built.
Yeah.
So I think the number one proven use case of blockchain so far is tokens, right? Is this idea that I don't need to, there's no barriers to creating a token. And so the scalability of Bitcoin should result in way more tokens. Like it's weird. Like I'm talking about Handcash talking about Relay, but like we could easily see who is correct. The market would tell you if there was an HC token. Then when they announce they're doing USDC, maybe that thing tanks 30%. Then he would know that like that's not a good idea, and he'll do something else, right? Like that's what I mean by information. Instead, we're not having tokens because we have this fear that these things are scams, and so we're just having our learning cycles in Bitcoin is like years and years.
That's true.
Like everyone's super stubborn, like, oh, I'm right, and then like they disappear.
Yeah.
So then like, you know, we're not learning very fast. Whereas the market could have told you on day one you're wrong.
Okay, so I do want to go back to something simpler before we go deeper, which is, let's say that I'm a humble person and I'm not interested in making the latest, greatest, newest business service. Do you think that there is a world for, you know, a person like me who just wants to use the token in a sort of novel way that wants to ride the adoption? Is it like you got to be fully in or you got to be fully out? Is there no kind of, you know, in between?
There's definitely in between. Which token are you trying to use? BSV?
BSV specifically, yeah.
Yeah. You can right now mint an NFT on RelayX or Gamify. You can post on Twitch. You can be like a user of businesses that's already been built. And the businesses that already been built are not enabling too much right now. Like you can't do too much on them. So what you're trying to do right now may not be possible on the existing platforms, right? So then you have to build the business yourself. And that's where it gets tricky. It's like you're caught in between. You both don't want to just be a producer. You want to build some kind of like platform business type of thing for other producers. Like you want to be some sort of a middleman type thing, or thing. But then you don't want to build the scalable, like fully blown up, like for everyone to do like the next big thing, right? I guess like then it's less likely to win, but it can exist.
Well, so I mean, the way that I have seen it thus far, without jumping, head first, is that what I'm basically experimenting with more than anything is a model. Because the current model for most record labels and even just artistic projects in general, I'm approaching all of this from like the
Yeah, I'm not familiar
perspective.
with, but why is there a need
Yeah.
for a record label in the first place?
Well, because like, so in general, most record labels today are like hobby projects, they're kind of, well, okay, why is there a need for labels? Because what they do, a good label, packages the product. Most music, I mean, there's so much good music these days, right? There's more, I would argue, as I'm a big fan of music from all times, but there is more good music today than ever before. There's more skill involved. I mean, this is the irony of the music industry. I went to, growing up, I went to a music conservatory, and the people that played at this conservatory, even when I was in New York, the people that I knew that were sort of studio musicians, they're performing at like a level that would have been prodigious savant talent 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Like, and there's hundreds of thousands of these people all over the world. They're performing at such a high level, and yet the music that comes out of the industry is extremely simple, right? It lacks sophistication, you could say. So that's the kind of imbalance that I feel like is big in music, is like the highest technical level producing the most homogeneous product. That's why labels today that are not the major labels have created niches, because they provide like a kind of a boutique thing, right? So like I come from a world where people buy vinyl because you're a DJ, and a lot of the music that you get is only available on vinyl, right? So oftentimes it's available digitally, but like a lot of the music that I like the most is like pretty much you can only hear it on vinyl. But that's a boutique sort of experience, right? And like some people, so like there's for example, my record, the label produced 300 copies. There's going to be like 50 to 100 of those that go to DJs that will play it in clubs, right? Who will never know my name, but they'll dance to the music, right? That's like why we do it. But then there's another 100, 200 copies that are just going to go to consumers that don't make music at all. But there's a sort of it's a different balance there. But the label is what provides that avenue. So like there are many labels where I don't even know the artist's name. I don't care who it is. I just know that the label is so good that I'll get every release that comes out. I think that's sort of that model, which is really good. It's kind of how labels used to be. You didn't know every Motown artist, but Motown artists would blow up because Motown had such a reputation. It's like a proof of work, right? This model deserves to be more profitable than the larger music industry model, which is sort of churning artists out like they're cattle. I see a way in which, because I'm a amateur programmer, I see a way in which I could build some type of tool that is useful for us, and as a result, useful to everybody that wants to get in on this, right?
Like, what is the flow that
Yeah.
you think works well in your worldview between the musician, yourself, Bitcoin platform?
Well, so right now, right, I have to use something like Instagram. And let's say like when we put out a tape in the real world, right, outside of BSV land, we put out first we do a 3D render of the tape itself, right? Like a digital mixtape, right? Then we do the artwork. Then we do multiple videos that present the music in a aesthetic fashion, right? I see BSV as the tool that allows me, in the same way that in the past you held the record, right? Holding the record makes all the difference. When you hold a record, it's like, think about like who's gonna buy Drake on vinyl? It just doesn't make sense, right? It's not because did I lose you? Are you there? Okay.
No, I'm here. But go on, keep
Yeah,
going.
nobody's gonna buy Drake on vinyl because it doesn't make sense. You already have context with the music. You know where you'll hear it, where you want to hear it, where it should be played, where it doesn't make sense to be played. That's why, like, to me, I
So
mean,
you want the vinyl to be an NFT?
no, I'm saying that with NFTs, you can emulate. I don't know if that's the exact
Sure,
right
not the
word.
physical vinyl, but like the idea of a vinyl.
The idea
your
of the
top
vinyl,
fan.
the idea of the vinyl, and make it cheap, right? So like nobody thinks of a vinyl being worth 10 cents as being a good thing, but an NFT being worth 10 cents is a great thing, right? I see that as being the stepping stone to getting music. Like I use the example with Hensley, but like there's plenty of records that there's plenty of, okay, I mean there are records I know that came like I was saying, from the independent record labels that produce like 300 records or whatever. There's many examples of records that, you know, you could get for like $15 2 years ago, and now they're worth $35, right? I see that happening on a micro scale with music and NFTs, where something that you bought for 10 cents is now worth 12 cents. As next year it's worth 15 cents. Next year it's worth 18 cents. When you scale that to the wider population that is already paying for music, I think, or like Patreon, including that element of like you support who you like, I see that as like a totally different paradigm for music specifically, where things grow in value over time, which is interesting because it's contrary to what you're saying about all like fungible tokens trending towards zero.
Yeah,
Right?
but it is trending towards zero. Even your thing that's growing from 12 cents to 18 cents is trending towards 0 Satoshis.
Right, in Satoshis, yes.
Satoshis. And I'm just saying that like the reality is that people inside BSV think very differently than the people outside of BSV.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like even today, we don't see it yet because like BSV itself is flat or going down. Now imagine if BSV started going up, like from $50 to 500 to 5,000 to 50,000. The complaints about these NFTs underperforming BSV will go completely through the roof.
Yeah,
At least
totally.
today, it's like, oh, look at these rare candy ones. They're good.
Yeah.
These relay ones suck. But like, you have to think at scale. At scale, financially, all of them suck.
I agree completely.
Like you can have the Mona Lisa on BSV. It's going to underperform BSV. That like either BSV fails and just stays as hobby project, stays $50. Next year is $10. Next year is $5. Next year is zero. But if the system is supposed to work, then there eventually will be a day where BSV is worth $1 million. Now, you might think that never happened, but like that's how, if you actually got 5 billion people onto this ledger, I can promise you there's no way this 5 billion people will be using some stable coin. They're going to be using BSV, okay? And that means the coin's going to be worth $1 million. When that happens, nobody cares that like, that's like saying, hey, you know, that thing is gone up in Argentina pesos. Does someone care about that? No. So the fact that this item is going up in dollars, no one will care going forward. But what they need this NFT for is that like, if I buy this NFT, I get to get airdrops of all their future music. I get to go to their concert. I get to use it as some access pass for a Zoom call with artists. It's like, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, I want to zoom into that because I think that's such an important point. If I can sell my music NFT today for 1,000 Satoshis, in the future, where things are valued in Satoshis, that doesn't matter, right? Because the value will always be less than I sold it for today. Is that kind of
Yeah,
getting to
it'll
the
be
heart
like
of it?
100 Satoshis at some point. Yeah. Which does not mean people don't want to buy that.
No, exactly. It just means that as we exit the dollar economy, the token itself will, man, it's a lot to take in because
But it's literally math, right?
yeah, no, I understand it. I'm just saying that, but if you zoom that out, then that'll apply to every single product that's ever exchanged on
That's
BSV.
correct. The idea of Bitcoin that I think I hold a controversial view on is Bitcoin ends finance. There is no such thing as finance or investing. That's gone. Bitcoin creates a world of complete abundance, creativity, production, and consumption. So in the Bitcoin economy, there is a saver who just hodls Bitcoins. There is a producer who's actually selling something of value and trying to earn Bitcoins. And there's a consumer. These three people are going to be the 99% of the economy. 1% of the economy is the investor, the one who doesn't produce, doesn't consume, doesn't save, and is constantly thinking about how do I like spend 5,000 BSVs and make it 5,500? How do I like find this one thing out of 1,000 that actually goes up in Satoshi terms because it might like pop after it gets minted and then like I'm gonna dump it before it drops. This is 1%. The current world is I don't care if you're a baker, I don't care if you're a musician, I don't care if what you do in the current world, you are an investor. Because no matter what you do, no matter if you're earning in dollars or euros or pounds or yen or whatever, RMB, you need to think about how do I buy a house? How do I buy like some stocks? How do I buy Dogecoin? How do I buy meme coin? Because you need to invest in order to preserve your wealth. If you just was a musician, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Okay. In the Bitcoin world, it will flip. And because it flips, people are going to be still consuming, but they're consuming in better and better quality goods all the time. So like today, you go for an iPhone upgrade every single year. There's a world where you don't do that anymore. You go for an upgrade every 3, 4, 5 years or something like that, because you value your Satoshis and whatever. The iPhones might be a bad example. You see what I mean? So like selling people on this idea that this thing goes up, it's like, no, they're gonna go down. And it makes sense to the person you're selling to outside of BSV, but the people inside BSV are extremely, extremely smart.
Well, okay, I just want to clarify. I'm not talking about thinking of the like even if a piece of music goes down exponentially in its value in Satoshis, that still means that it's accruing value in Satoshis over time, right? Eventually that value will it will increase. Like, I mean, it naturally will increase, even if the amount that it increases by gets lower and lower and lower.
What do you mean? If you sell me an NFT for 1 BSV, and I'm telling you it's for sure going to 0.1, where is the value accruing?
Because if what I imagine is that you'll, let's say I upload my mixtape to Relay, right? My audio is on the chain.
Yep.
Currently I'm granting access to the service Relay to host it for other people to buy it, right? But let's say tomorrow I give Spotify and SoundCloud and YouTube and I mean you're familiar with like DistroKid. I like give DistroKid access. Now my song is on TikTok, it's on Instagram, it's all that. And everywhere that it's being used, it's generating 100 Satoshis. And every day that Satoshi amount drops lower and lower and lower, it's still accruing a larger value. Now, the question is, does that value that it's accruing go back into the token itself, or does it go to the artist, right? That's where I would say that there's a bit of a difference because
it should go to the artist.
I agree, right? It should go to the producer, and in the sense that, so when you buy the token, you're not expecting to like resell it and make a shit ton of money, but you're buying it because you want the good itself, right?
Exactly. So if you want, if there's a world where you must pay Satoshis in order to listen to the song, then yeah, as long as the song's listened to, you'll be generating more and more Satoshis. That makes sense, right? But I think it's not one of those things where like you grant Relay, then you grant Spotify. It's more like it's put on chain. Any interface that wants to grab it can grab it and show it, so that there's no need for this like discussion between different.
You don't think that the like being encrypted and being tied to like the artist's identity and then sort
No,
of,
it'll be encrypted and tied to the identity, but there's no restrictions on which interface choose to show it.
and you don't think that'll be set up in the future?
No, it's automated. So like there like the order lock inside Relay is I'm choosing to sell the NFT. I've packaged it on chain. This NFT cannot be moved unless someone gives this amount of BSVs, and then the NFT will move. That is done open. So Relay can do it, Jamify can do it, anyone can do it, and it's open. So when Jamify wants to sell certain things on RelayX, the founder of Gemify can be anonymous, does not have to contact RelayX, and he sung that thing. The people who minted the NFTs on Relay never had to give permission to Gemify for Gemify to sell that. Because from the perspective of the artist, they're making the same amount of money, whether they're sold on Relay or on Gemify or anywhere else. This is like the way you can build a system that scales and that can grow super, super fast. Because you don't have this like one-on-one communication. Like the only reason Bitcoin's gonna create a world economy 1,000 times bigger than the current economy is because it allows you to play coordination games in a way more rapidly than you could in the original world. So the idea that there'll be a human being playing this coordination game, acting as like some broker, is obsolete. Right, like I like see, I was able to make fees from Gopniks minting NFTs without ever talking to the Gopniks ever. To this day, I've never met like Gopniks, right? Like I can make a artist platform despite myself never drawing art in my life. So because everything, the value is all fragmented, the value of you having connections to a group of people, that is what people are disrupting. Right? Because like the whole way the world works is like it's the old boys club that like only these people have access to these deals and whatever. That is what's being disrupted.
Right.
So that's what peer-to-peer economy means. There's savers, there's producers, there's consumers.
Right.
The middleman is being cut and the investors are being cut. And so everything is a consumption. And everything is a production. That's why you're gonna have GDP growth like grow like 1,000x, because everyone can just be producing all the time. So if you're making music, that's good for you. If you're consuming music, I think you'll enjoy that. And the beautiful thing about consuming is like right now I'm subscribed to like Spotify. Okay. After I end my subscription, I can no longer listen to the music. Like that's fucked up to me. Right. What I would like to do is to buy certain artists' music, and then afterwards I could use, no matter what platform, I get to listen to this music.
Right.
I think that's like the actual future. So it's like the music is posted onto the chain itself. Right. And then like the encrypting the music, I don't see that being very popular because right now most people are posting their music onto the chain without encryption. So the business model has to change. It's more like you listen to the music for free, and then I'm gonna like sell you something else later on, like an in-person concert or a paraphernalia or a meet and greet or something like that.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, but don't you think though that if that was the case, like that would cut out like the majority of music anyway, because it would fall to the people that could just sell like the most attractive, external thing, like here's the flashiest party I can throw. And if you're invited to that, then that's all that matters.
Well, the people with the best songs are still going to be the ones that people want to go to the parties of, right? If your music is terrible, I don't really want to go to your party.
You'd be
Like
surprised.
Avicii can have like the best like clubs and parties and whatever, not because he knows how to party, but because people like his songs.
Right.
Right. Like, I don't know. But clearly, like, you can already listen to most songs for free on YouTube or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I just feel like the encrypted thing, I mean, I think that's fine as long as the idea is, which I want to see if you agree with that, which is that the idea being that the song can be distributed everywhere and anywhere as long as it all kind of funnels back to the entity that uploaded it, which allows it to maximize the artist's, getting the most value out of it, right?
Right. But I'm just telling you the trend, like you're overthinking about this.
Yeah.
Literally, the number one thing people wanted to do with crypto like 2 years ago was to buy Dogecoin and Shiba Inu. Okay, why? Because those things can go up 100 times.
Right.
Like even someone who's working on rocket ships and like self-driving cars, like Elon Musk, he doesn't spend his time talking about utility of crypto. He spends his time talking about Dogecoin.
Yeah.
Okay.
But isn't that, but I mean, if we're talking about abundance, if we're thinking in the abundance mindset, isn't that too much of today and not enough of like the future? Because in the future,
I'm saying like I'm only like you can look at this like very famous like poster on Twitter. It's called GTR Classic. He's one of the best traders in crypto. He said music NFTs are going to take off when there is this idea of like exclusivity. It's like I'm one of 75 people who hold the Justin Bieber original song NFTs from 2004.
right?
Like that is what makes the NFTs like I'm badass balling. Like
Yeah.
the speculative
Well,
value. You need
and
to
that
give the speculative value. Yeah.
and that mimics the vinyl thing that I was saying, because that's what happens when a song really pops off and there's only 300 copies of it in the world, right? That makes the vinyl increase in value significantly, you know. Okay, I mean, let's
I mean,
just
I guess what I'm saying is like, why can't they just upload their vinyl themselves to one of these platforms?
well, that's the thing, right? So the like one of my favorite labels, Perlon, which is German, they've been around since the 90s, exceptional label. They never put any of their music digitally, right? And they've been doing that for like hundreds of releases at this point. And somebody will put it on YouTube for sure, but that doesn't take away at all from the value of the vinyl itself and like how sought after it is, right?
Right. So like a lot of things that almost 100% of the things that are working in BSV are things that already work in crypto. All these other things that people imagine could work do not work.
Well, but don't you think that's because of just the current state of where we are in crypto? Like none of these other chains are utilizing like any sort of micropayments system. They don't have like, isn't that just a feature of where we are, and that as time goes on, there will be a wider divide?
Oh yeah, there will be when there is not 10,000 times more people in crypto than BSV, when you've already taken like half of those people and now there's the most people in BSV, then we will see signs that an original idea from BSV is taking off, another original idea is taking off. Even today, like I don't see any actual original ideas in BSV versus in crypto. Now, that's because you're not looking closely enough in crypto. I'm saying like even the stuff like Twitch and stuff, you will find certain versions of that. They might not work exactly like that, but certain things. And the common thing that people have is there's this element of speculation that people want, like, and it's about giving people the structures that offers like the most speculation. I mean, this is just like what crypto is. Like you can keep on talking about it's like a store of value, it's a payment system, it's a whatever. Like I'm just giving you the facts, which is like what's working.
Wait, okay, so you're telling me to sort of understand and take advantage of the speculative nature of crypto. But at the same time, you're also saying that, see, okay, to make someone believe that my product is good for you as a speculator, I have to convince them that it's going to be worth more in the future.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
But we're also understanding the fact that Satoshis will be,
That's right.
like, there will be less Satoshis available in the
That's
future.
right.
So how do you resolve these two ideas?
So over time, as more people sell the first message, it's going to be harder and harder to sell that first message. But today, there are more people that believe investing in your music startup is going to make more money than investing in BSV, because BSV has done absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So you still have this window to sell people on, you're going to make the money. You certainly can make artist money for sure.
Right. Which is my goal. I mean, I think you're reminding me that there's this whole other side to it, which is to kind of bring in the consumer themselves as like part of the operation, and like they have to win, like everybody has to win, right? Which
yeah, your goal is to create the most winning possible of all the, because this is the crazy thing about Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin and crypto in general do not reward the most rational, thought out business. It rewards the most extreme version of an idea that still is logical. So if you have a crazy idea that is just completely crazy, it won't work. If you have the craziest idea that just might work, that will be the version that works. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
People focus on Tether's not backed, whatever this is. Okay, this screaming. Though the reality is, like, this is the #1 stablecoin in the world. Okay. Yes, USTs went to zero, right? Sure, Do Kwon. USTs, Tether, Luna Terra, right? Well, the reality is that's the thing that reached $10 billion in market cap. So if you want to be a commentator, sure, be a commentator. But in the arena where entrepreneurs compete, the most absurd version of something that could still work is the one that does work. Like, would I love for USD stablecoin to be issued by the Federal Reserve itself? Sure. But if you were waiting for that, you would have lost a massive opportunity to be the founder of Tether, or the founder of USDC, or the founder of whatever. So it's like, because there's so many entrepreneurs who are able to step into this arena, typically what will happen is the most absurd idea that's still logical is the one that wins. And the one that is the fastest to be able to be built is the one that gets market adoption. So at the time when, you take yourself back to the time when Dogecoin was founded in 2013, were there people who were studying like crazy ways of, we can tokenize stocks, this could make the US stock market more efficient and make it 24/7 trading? Or fast forward 2022, do people trade US stocks on the blockchain? No. It's a huge market. It's a $60 trillion market, $80 trillion market. No. But if you were the guy who just thought, oh, let's make a joke coin called Dogecoin, that's the one that won. Now, did every other joke coin win? No, because it's probably like 10,000 other joke coins that didn't win. But the winner comes from the absurdity. The winner doesn't come from the logic. And people in BSV are very good at identifying the problems with the existing world. And they keep on trying to apply this blockchain to one of these problems. And it says that, see, if you and you and you and you all did this instead and did that instead, and just wait for me to build this like thing, then like this would all what we currently know as healthcare or music or stocks would work better on the BSV blockchain. Whereas what I think about is, like, I assume the entire world economy does not exist. period. As I don't even know what the total market cap is of the music industry or the healthcare industry. I just assume in my mind this thing doesn't exist, right?
Mhm.
Just for the pure act of brainstorming. It's not that laws don't exist. Like before you actually launch a product, you want to consider all these other things, right? But
Yeah.
to have the full, complete creativity, what you want to imagine is the blockchain exists. What are the characteristics of this blockchain? Like, what does it actually do? Understand that really well. And you can understand that through reading a white paper. You can understand it through like thinking about economic theory. You can understand it through looking at existing products that somewhat work that on the blockchain, like a TDXP, Pure Game, Relay, Twetch, whatever. Take that into consideration. That's one part of your learning. The other part of your learning is you look at essentially 8 billion people that are unemployed. Because the reality is they are unemployed. They are unemployed in the perspective of they're not doing anything on the BSC blockchain today.
Mhm.
They're all 8 billion people are unemployed as far as it comes to BSV.
Mhm.
So then you want to think about what is the employment opportunity I can create for some percentage of these 8 billion people on BSV? And what is it that's going to make them quit their job in the matrix and get a job in BSV? Right? So then you want to listen to their frustrations. They're frustrated because they have to do this, that, and like you create something new. That is the best way to think about it. Because if you come from the existing world and you look at Bitcoin as a technology that you can attach to the existing world, you're always going to lose to someone who thinks about it from complete scratch.
Mm.
Right? Like, because
Yeah.
ultimately, Twitch only made money when they added NFTs. But like Twitter doesn't have NFTs. So like the initial copying Twitter with some micropayment, that didn't actually work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because they're looking at it fresh, looking at what's working on BSV, what's working on crypto. They started seeing that Magic Eden's taking off, like OpenSea's taking off, Relay's taking off. That's when they brought these things in. So if you stay fixed to what I think a social network is, you would have never had the idea to add NFTs to the social network.
Right. Right.
Right? If you think of like a wallet as just a thing that facilitates payments, then you're going to be boxed into the payment realm.
Mm.
And a lot of the apps built on BSV right now are essentially just Web 2 plus like payments.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, it's not working. Oh, it must be because the thing I'm doing payments with is called BSV. Let's call it Duros. Oh, that's still not working. Maybe I should change the thing I'm doing payments with to a stable coin.
Right.
When if you understood Bitcoin first, you'd be like, holy shit, I can use Bitcoin to store data, identity, tokens. I can do all that. What is the most powerful thing about Bitcoin? I can dress up in the form of a product to compel people to leave the existing world to come here. One of those industries will be music, right? But I think if you break down what the artist fundamentally wants, right? And what the fan fundamentally wants, that they currently do not have in any capacity, right? Because like you can make music streaming from the blockchain, but the reality is your software is probably not going to stream as well as Spotify.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna need 100 engineers to make a streaming service work as good as the streaming service of Spotify. This is why Streamanity doesn't work, right? It's like you're just YouTube with like worse infrastructure with some payment on top. This is not interesting, right?
Mm.
But what is interesting is the idea that the artist can have a balance sheet. The artist can go public themselves, and then they can control their entire financial ecosystem. That I think is interesting.
Mm.
Like I think that will be explored in this next cycle in crypto, is this idea of like creator tokens. And I think that would be big. And then from that, you can build all this other stuff. So I'm just telling you sort of like the cycles of adoption. And I just think there's like no skipping that in my opinion.
Mm.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, man. Well, thank you for a really great conversation. I hope, maybe one day we can continue. Still feels like there's so much ground to cover. But thanks a lot. Really appreciate you giving your time.
Absolutely. I know you'll be successful in this economy, and I look forward to seeing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. See you.
See you.